Welcome to the big show. A lot going on right now. The Democrats are in a total panic mode because you see, there's a new analysis out by a really smart guy named Nate Silver at 538. And well, let's just say it's not what the Democrats would have thought. We're going to talk all about that. Plus, there's a little interview happening tonight over on some network that's turning increasingly into what I would just call state media, and that would be CNN. We're going to talk about what you might expect coming your way on CNN's airwaves with that interview with Kamala and Tim Walz. Donald Trump has a few things to say on that. And ladies and gentlemen, Nvidia. Nvidia out with earnings. And this was pretty darn amazing. I just got to tell you, really incredible to see. And yet, you know what? People are not happy. They're not happy enough because you know what? They were looking for more. I mean, wow, this stock really is something else. I'm telling you, we've got more on this coming up later, both during this show and then a little bit later on 76 Research, my other YouTube channel at 76 Research. Go check it out, 76research.com. But let's get first to the news of the day. My gosh, breaking right now, we have just learned that 538 is putting Donald Trump way ahead of Kamala Harris. I mean, he's crushing her if you take a look at this brand new poll analysis that just came out just in the last couple hours. By the way, you're not going to hear about this on mainstream media because this is not the narrative that they want you to see or to hear. There's a new USA Today poll out as well. And allegedly, she's ahead of him by a few points in that, but not here. Not when you go and you look state by state and you actually start to figure out what the Electoral College is going to look like. That's when you see something that looks like this. Take a look at this. I mean, this is really amazing, guys. The big picture, who is favored to win the presidency. Now, I've been telling you all along, it's really important to look at things like Polymarket being one of those trading sites, betting sites where people have real money on the line. And all along, they've been predicting that it would be Donald Trump as the winner, but this is the first time we've seen it over here at 538. Again, Nate Silver's 538, taking a look at the probability of a Harris versus Trump presidency. I want to go to this wide so you can see it a little bit more clearly. What you would have thought, right, is that she would have gotten some kind of bounce out of that Democrat convention, and that instead of that blue line trending down, as you see here, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you so much. We love you for doing that. If you're watching on YouTube, that's awesome. Make sure that you go and also check out the Apple Podcast. It's on Spotify as well, or Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. But take a look there. I mean, look at that crossover. That's pretty amazing. Now, this, as I said, this is not going to be something that those on the left want to discuss. This is not fitting their narrative right now, but this is reality, folks. And this is, if you listen to the show, if you listen to me, what I've been saying all along, that you've got to be somewhat careful with the polls and you've got to look at them within some kind of context of what's going to happen from an electoral college standpoint. And so what this is showing you is that Donald Trump is now ahead. And this is quite recent, right? Because they were neck and neck, and look at him pulling ahead. It's not what the Democrats thought. They thought that she was going to come out of that convention and it was going to be just all, rainbows and happy times. And that's not at all what happened, because listen, they're talking about change. You're going to have change in America. Well, how are you going to get change if it's the exact same person with the exact same, effectively, plan to run the country? You're not going to get any change. Instead, you're going to have this whopping inflation that nobody likes, and more of it, thank you very much, because her economic policy is so surreally bad. I mean, really bad. Take a look here. This is something else that Nate Silver points out. He has like a newsletter he sends out, and he said that she's fallen to 47.3% chance of winning the Electoral College versus the 52.4% for Donald Trump. And the numbers don't actually add up to a perfect 100, in part because of the possibility, a very real possibility, of an Electoral College deadlock. So he also goes on to say that part of the problem here for her is that she's not seeing enough sort of support, if you would, in the state of Pennsylvania. In fact, if you look at all the polls, she has yet to really come out and win one of those. I've seen 3 recently that all show her losing to Donald Trump. And that, again, doesn't surprise me because I think Pennsylvania voters, they're very focused on the economy. They're looking at what Joe Biden did for the last 3.5 years, and they're like, no, thank you. Here's the Emerson College poll. This one just came out August 16th, and you're seeing 44% to 43% Trump versus Harris. This is reflected in all the Pennsylvania polls that we've seen thus far. And this is why, when you look at this prediction model, Nate Silver is saying, okay, it's got to be 47.3% chance of Kamala Harris winning now versus the 52.4% chance of Donald Trump. I think it's really important to talk about this because at this moment in time, the left has doubled down on Kamala, 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 Kamala. You know, she's the be-all, end-all, and they're just really not willing to look at reality. I guess that's great because that's exactly what they did in 2016. My concern for conservatives in this scenario is that they are trying to suck all the oxygen out of the room. They're trying to make it so that you feel deflated and you don't want to go to the polls, and there's no chance in HELL that he could ever win. Well, take a look at that. There's every chance. In fact, he's actually ahead. They just don't want you to know that. Polymarket is predicting this. This is one of the betting sites that we watch. And he's ahead today even more. So when we looked at this just yesterday and the day before, we were seeing a 49% chance to a 50% chance. And again, the numbers aren't perfect, but now you're looking at 50 to 48. You could argue that some of this momentum might actually be, as I predicted, attributable to RFK Jr. RFK Jr. getting in on things. And this is why the left is going crazy right now, doing everything they can to try and ensure that he's still on some of those key ballots in swing states. He's trying to pull himself up. I have a question. Okay, if they're going to make him stay on those ballots in those swing states, then why wouldn't they also make Joe Biden stay on those ballots in those swing? I mean, I'm just saying, right? How is it that Joe Biden can pull himself off, but RFK Jr. can't? I wonder. Seems like there could be a potential lawsuit there, but this is really just amazing news to see, everyone. Really, really amazing stuff. And I think it's important that you know about it, that you understand it. Subscribe to this show. Just a quick reminder, make sure that you do that. Subscribe to the show, share, like, all that good stuff. We got a lot to get into. Part of the problem, if you would, part of the problem for this team is that those on the left that are all about Kamala don't really understand entirely what they're up against. As I look at a new article that was just revealed in the Wall Street Journal, the problem is Kamala is a little bit too much like one of the cool kids, right? And people don't really like the cool kids these days because the cool kids are kind of annoying. Well, she's such a cool kid that she keeps running off to LA to go to all kinds of Hollywood parties. This was amazing to me. So there is a 10-minute read in the Wall Street Journal. Amazing. Well, they don't really like her, much because the Wall Street Journal still cares about the economy, and her economic policy is really, really, really atrocious, I'll just say. Anyway, it's entitled Inside Kamala Harris's LA Life, Soul Cycle, Hollywood Parties, Annoyed Neighbors. So she apparently goes out to Los Angeles quite a bit and had been doing so even while she was vice president, because apparently being president and vice president is like the easiest job in America. Who knew? You don't actually have to do much. You get to go hang out on the beach if you're him, Joe Biden, and you get to go back on taxpayers' dime all the way to Los Angeles if you're Kamala Harris. So it says she'd been doing this quite a bit. In fact, this had become sort of old hat. She would fly out to LA all the time to hang out with all these, special people. It reads, Kamala Harris had a busy Saturday in her adopted hometown of Los Angeles this past March. After jetting back from an event for Latino voters in Las Vegas, Harris retired to the home she shares with her hubby, Doug Emhoff, in the city's Brentwood enclave. Then it was off to an Oscar party thrown by Hollywood power agent Brian Lord, an exclusive invitation that allowed the vice president to mingle with media moguls like Barry Diller, celebrity CEOs like Bob Iger, he would be the guy that runs Disney, and Academy Award winners like Julia Roberts. I wonder if George was there, George Clooney, because he kind of had a hand in all this. Anyway, a long weekend in Los Angeles, one that combines time at home, A-list socializing, and a small dose of campaigning. It is an itinerary Harris knows well. They write. They go on to say that ever since getting named there to the top of the ticket, she's been spending more and more time there in Brentwood. In 2023 alone, this is amazing to me, she spent at least 59 days in the city, traveling there every month except 2. I mean, DC to LA, it's kind of a hike, right? But like we said, it must be the easiest job. Who knew? Well, apparently, according to this 10-minute article, the people in Brentwood are getting a little bit annoyed because, you know, it's a lot of hoopla, a heck of a lot of hoopla whenever Kamala Harris comes to town. And that is very annoying to the neighbors, very annoying to the neighborhood because, quote, the streets always shut down. Oh, get ready for it, guys. Anyway, the point is, this is what the left keeps missing. They don't seem to understand that America doesn't want a celebrity president. I mean, yeah, they got one sort of, right, with Donald Trump because of Celebrity Apprentice. But the difference was he still kind of had his finger, his pulse on the working class in America. Heck, the guy likes McDonald's, right? And he grew up in Queens and he was very proud of everything he earned. Very different kind of message than the one that we get from Kamala Harris. And so she's just not resonating. Hence the new poll numbers. She's not getting that bounce out of that Democrat convention. It's got a lot of people really, really nervous. You got key demographics that should be supporting Kamala Harris that are saying, no, wait, no, I'm not in it. I'm not with her. This has turned into a viral moment. And the Trump campaign is wisely capitalizing on it, out with a brand new commercial in which they're showing all of these women that you would expect, would certainly be for Kamala Harris. They want nothing to do with her, according to this campaign commercial. Let's watch.
My name is Jasmine Woodson.
Hi, my name is Silo.
I'm Karen Watson. I'm Yolanda Johnson from Georgia.
This is BB Diamond from New York City.
I'm Dana Galen, and I'm from Tampa, Florida.
I live in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Out here in Maricopa County.
Kalamazoo County, Michigan.
I am a proud African immigrant living in Florida.
I'm from the great state of New Jersey.
I'm Angelina from Philly, and this November, I am not voting for Kamala Harris.
I am not voting for Kamala Harris.
I'm not voting for Kamala Harris.
I am not with Kamala Harris.
I am not with her.
I'm not with her.
I am not with Kamala Harris.
I'm not with Kamala.
I am not for Kamala. I am for Donald Trump.
I am not with Kamala.
I am not with her because she is not with me.
I support President Trump and the economic policies our country experienced under his leadership as our 45th president.
President Trump will support our law enforcement agencies and fund them appropriately.
Donald Trump made me proud to be an American.
I'm with Donald J. Trump.
We need a leader who can make America great again.
Trump puts Americans first, and he always will.
We need Donald Trump.
I and millions of other Black Americans will cast my vote for Donald J. Trump.
I will proudly cast my vote for Donald J. Trump as our next president.
So you get the picture. You get the picture, and it goes on. But the point is like these women are giving other women courage to say, hey, you know what? It's not all about I just have to vote for the Black woman. Maybe it's actually about the economic policy that will enable me and my family to be successful and have a shot at things. Again, I go back to the inflation numbers alone being so extraordinarily high under this administration. I go back to median income, seeing the largest growth they had ever seen since all the way back to the JFK era. Interesting that RFK would be part of the administration, right? It's rather fascinating because people were doing well and then they weren't. And all of a sudden, they're saying, wait a second, do we really want more of the same? I don't think so. And so this is going to be very painful for Kamala Harris. She's actually going to be seeing increasingly, I would bet, more polls that look like this because more people are going to be sort of okay with coming out and saying, yeah, I'm not going to support this woman because this woman doesn't really, and I think fundamentally this is the problem here, she doesn't really understand or care about me. She's not going to try and make my community safer. She's not going to really work to find economic solutions to the challenges that we now face. She just wants to give giveaways, handouts, because, it's whatever works in the moment. Well, that doesn't work. $25,000, that gets me. I mean, unbelievable. To first-time home buyers, you think that's going to work? You know what it's going to do? It's going to raise the prices by $25K. You look at the Supreme Court saying, no, we have to freeze this thing. You guys were trying to buy votes effectively by buying off these kids with their student loans. I mean, it's bonkers what they're trying to do. We are not Venezuela. We are not a communist nation. And you look at her and her policies, the stupidity of them, underpinning all of them, and you start to say to yourself, is that really what I want? I don't think so. Not to mention the woman is really difficult to watch. Kamala Harris is really painful. I mean, can you imagine having 4 years of this woman talking to us? You ought to have seen her. She went to go this high school thing and talked to a bunch of high schoolers about how great they are and they're leaders and, team building and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, wait a second, is she talking to kindergartners or is she talking to high schoolers? It's how she thinks of you. It's how she thinks of Americans. She talks down to everyone because she thinks everyone's so damn stupid and she's got all the answers. Listen to her here.
Our country's counting on you. All of you. You are leaders. By the very fact that you all are here in this room, doing what you do at this incredible school, doing it as one big team, understanding all of the different parts that fit together to create a team.
Woo! You got it? Those high schoolers had to have been like, wow. Did they put Dr. Jill in her body? That's how it felt. It reminded me of those times when Jill was trying to talk to us like we were little kids. Dr. Jill, the big teacher. This was Kamala Harris, the teacher, trying to school those students. I mean, I'm surprised we didn't get a dose of this.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
I just don't think she's a serious person. I think that's the problem. She's running off to LA to her fancy parties and hanging out with Julia Roberts and George Clooney and Bob Iger, CEO of Disney. And she's not serious about actually doing the hard work that it would require to address the issue of our border, to address the issue of inflation, to try and promote some kind of peace in the world, for goodness sakes. She's had 3.5 years, thank you very much. She doesn't want to be tethered to Joe Biden. I'm sorry, you were in the administration as his vice president for 3.5 years. She was so proud of telling us how she was the last person in the room when we were pulling out of Afghanistan. Okay, lady, you're the last person. And now they're trying to say, no. That wasn't her. That wasn't all. She was just supporting Joe Biden. I'm sorry. You know what? You got to take a little bit of blame here, lady. And I would just say this. Her policies are even worse. Far worse than Joe Biden ever really dreamed of quite doing. I mean, maybe he was your grandfather's Democrat. This woman's cut from a whole new cloth. This is like Barack Obama on steroids. This is socialism on steroids. This is, and when you consider all that they have done to suppress other viewpoints like yours truly right here, important for you to subscribe. Please do that. Share, hit the bell so you know when I'm live. Listen, they are doing everything they can to promote one view. They are telling you over and over again, she's way ahead. It's like a giant psych op, for God's sakes. And no, she's not, because here's the truth, okay? Here's the truth. 47.3% probability rate for Kamala Harris winning this whole thing and becoming the president. They're going to try everything they can. They got every trick in the book, but you know what? It's going to come down to you and you going out and vote and your friends going out and voting and not being demoralized the way they are trying to make you right now. She's got a big interview tonight. Kamala Harris sitting down on CNN for a taped interview. That's the dead giveaway, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that it's taped. Well, I mean, aside from the fact that it's CNN, and she's not doing it alone. She's got Timmy Boy right there by her side just in case anything goes wrong. I mean, here's the thing. CNN has become kind of a joke. Now, look, the media business is the media business, and it's called the media business for a reason. In other words, these people need to make money. These networks need to make money. And CNN tried to just be middle of the road, and let's be all things to all people, even though we knew the whole time they were super left. Well, that whole middle of the road thing, it didn't go so well. Margaret Thatcher had a brilliant quote about that, right? Don't sit there in the middle of the road, you're going to get run over. Well, that's exactly what happened to CNN. So you had Fox on the right And you had MSNBC on the super left. And so CNN's like, oh, we'll be all things to all people, except they weren't really. And then they realized as a business strategy, that wasn't really working for them. So they decided to double down on what they really were, which was super duper left. I got proof of it in a second, but to remind you, this is the big thing that everybody's like excited about. Well, everybody but me, because I have to actually watch it and share with you clips for tomorrow. I'm doing the dirty work. You better subscribe. Anyway, 9 p.m. tonight, she's going to sit down with Dana Bash. Woohoo. But it's not just her, you see. It's her and her buddy boy, Timmy. And what's the idea? Is he supposed to soften her some way? Is he supposed to help fill in the gaps or prevent her from saying those silly word salad things? What is the reason to have him there? She can't do it on her own. The first possible woman president can't sit down for an interview with Dana Bash? Apparently not. But think about this network, okay? Dana co-hosted that debate on CNN with Jake Tapper that totally destroyed Biden's candidacy. Jake Tapper himself had kind of a viewpoint, shall we say, going into that whole debate. And his viewpoint was that Biden was brilliant, and any stuttering or anything that you saw was really just because he has a stuttering condition. Nothing to do with anything else, nothing to do with his intelligence, nothing to do with his ability to kind of think on his feet, nothing to do with his age and possible potential mental decline. And he tried to destroy our friend Lara Trump over this one. I want to take you down memory lane. Remember this?
Every time he comes on stage or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You have
to watch somebody on stage search for
That's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
But when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter.
Yeah,
I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
you just talked
is
about
that
a cognitive decline.
That Joe Biden
I have
is
one last
struggling
question for you, Laura. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel sorry for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure.
That was unbelievable. I mean, he was blatantly rude to her. He clearly had a narrative that he was instructed to give, which is that Joe's doing great. Joe's doing great. There's no cognitive decline. How dare you suggest anything? Those of us that were out here showing you some of the clips, and I always showed you those in the entirety of the situation, so you understood. It wasn't like we could say it was a cheap fake, as KJP and others at the White House tried to allege. No, this stuff was all real. It was all on display for everybody to see. Joe was slow. Joe was slipping. Joe didn't make any sense, and yet they had the CNN guy out there trying to attack Lara Trump for even suggesting anything about that. I mean, she had a point, right? Every time he opens his mouth, you're like, oh, can he get it out? Can he say it? Can he possibly? Well, eventually, reality caught up with CNN and Jake Tapper. Or maybe it wasn't reality. Maybe it was Barack Obama. Maybe it was David Plouffe. Maybe it was David Axelrod when they really figured out they couldn't win this thing. And they had to switch it all around. So they had to put Kamala in the seat. So they went back to CNN and they said, okay, now it's time. Go for it, buddy boy. And what did he do? He initiated the takedown.
In an attempt to reassure voters about his fitness for office, Biden campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon holding a call with party leaders earlier today, telling them this too shall pass. There is a discernible pattern of Democratic officials seemingly trying to convince you, the public, to not believe what you saw and what you heard with your eyes and with your ears on Thursday night.
What I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare, the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Democratic officials have tried to spin this in many ways. They said President Biden just had a cold. They said it was just one off night, akin to when President Obama in 2012 was rusty and seemed a little huffy. But behind the scenes, make no mistake, most Democratic officials witnessed the same shocking spectacle that you did. The difficulty that the presumptive Democratic nominee, the current president of the United States, had just articulating his basic thoughts during the 90 minutes of the debate.
So in other words, it was okay for Jake to take him down then. Just wasn't okay earlier, not until the powers that be made their decision. So what exactly do you think you're going to get when you tune in and you see this big spectacle tonight? Kamala Harris, Tim Walz sitting down with Dana Bash, who's getting her marching orders. Frankly, I mean, look, I know how these things work. And I'm going to tell you guys something that's somewhat revealing and somewhat telling. Never, when I worked at Fox, did I have anybody tell me you can't pursue that line of questioning. When I worked at Bloomberg, I got it a lot. What are you doing? Why did you have that fight with Gene Sperling on the air about spending and GDP? Obama's econ guy at the time. Or that private equity investor, how dare you push him on the private equity fat cat tax loophole. He's a big Obama donor. It happened. It happened a lot on that network. It actually never happened at Fox. So I'm reminding you of this because when you watch this interview tonight, there are handlers. Now, I eventually left there. Went to Fox, left there. I'm here with you now, all right? You got me, whether you like it or not. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. But what I definitely picked up on was that the team in charge when I was at Bloomberg was the Obama team. And they expected you to play nice, and they didn't really like me much because I didn't really, look, I mean, I guess just through and through, which is why it's fortunate that I'm here now and that you're here and we have this growing channel together. But I never really got that, right? Like, because, what you see is what you get, and I'm pretty open about it. And I wasn't really going to say, okay, now I have to sit there and be spoon-fed a bunch of nonsense from this PE guy or Gene when I don't agree with it. I can have that debate any day of the week, and I'm going to have that debate with anyone that comes on my program any day of the week. But, it wasn't really my program, right? It's the network's program. And Dana, she's been at that network forever. So guarantee you, she plays by the rules, by the company rules. And so when you see this tonight, I think you got to take it all with a grain of salt. Donald Trump coming out slamming CNN, saying basically this is nothing but state media. And you're not going to get much out of this. Not much at all, because for goodness sakes, the whole thing's taped. She's not doing it alone. It's going to be scripted. Watch him here in an exclusive interview with the Daily Mail.
First thing I want to do is say, why isn't it live? It's not a live interview. It's an interview that's going to be taped and then edited and then put out. So that's not even an interview. Then she's doing it with her vice president sitting there. So she's not very smart. When they ask her a question that she can't answer, she'll just look at him. You answer it. I can't imagine. Everyone's waiting for her to do an interview because she's been a very big failure in interviews before, as you know, a tremendous failure. And she brings in the vice president, who, by the way, isn't so good himself. He's been a disaster, this guy. He has been a disaster. His state is in a state of shock from his governorship. He's been a horrible governor. You look at employment numbers, you look at the people that are leaving, you look at all of the problems. Minneapolis is a burned down. They never built it back. It was terrible. He's been a terrible governor. It was a crazy pick. But he's sitting with her to help her out. So this is not the kind of a person we need as president.
In other words, she's running for the presidency. You can sit and do your own damn interview, lady. Please. Answer the questions. But maybe she really can't. I'm not sure that he can either. I'm going to be he's such a dunce. I'm not sure he can either, but, maybe he'll tell us more about his socialism. I'm like, wait a second, the guy has been earning six figures for how many years, and he hasn't managed to save anything, like anything at all. So he's either a complete total spendthrift, or he doesn't believe in ownership of things. He doesn't own his house. He doesn't own one single equity, not one single stock. Communist much? I guess he's really drinking the Kool-Aid. So I'm like, he's really stupid. He's really just, a spendthrift. I don't know. Or he's a total commie. Probably all of the above. But it's a little weird to be well into your 60s, have been making so much money for so long, and you never save a dime? I'm sorry. And you're going to be our vice president. Gee, you know what? I think I want to go with the billionaire after all. They're trying to paint him as the billionaire. And I love it because what they miss on this whole thing, and I know Donald Trump, I've known him for many, many years. In fact, the first time I ever met him was when he was filing for bankruptcy protection on his Atlantic City casinos. He filed for bankruptcy, and I'll never forget it. I met him and introduced, hello, Mr. Trump, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. He shakes my hand. He's like, isn't this great? Isn't this great? And I'm like, wait, you filed for bankruptcy protection. But his point was, he had the protection of the bankruptcy laws on his side. So glass half full, shall we say, glass half full. I've known him for a long time. And he's the kind of guy that, speaking of Bloomberg, when they would put out the Bloomberg list of the top billionaires and how much money they had, he'd be like, no, I'm really supposed to be there. I'm this, I'm that. He wanted to make sure everybody knew he had more money. So most politicians are trying to be somewhat, low key about this. Trump had way more money than Mitt Romney. And by the way, he was going to let you know it all day long. And so it makes it harder for them to attack him as the billionaire because he's like, hell yeah, it's my strength. I'm the billionaire who wants to make sure that everybody else in America has a shot at becoming a billionaire too. And that's part of what's so intrinsic, if you would, to the American dream. We all want a shot at doing better. And so for Kamala Harris to come along and say, okay, I'm going to rip that out from under, because, by the way, I actually want to tax your unrealized capital gains. Oh, my gosh. We're trying to keep Trish's blood pressure under control. By the way, coming up on 76 Research, right as this show ends, you should follow it. Let me see if I can put it in the chat, or let me actually just put it right here on screen. The handle is @76 Research. So we have a YouTube channel. It's @76 Research. We're going to talk about the capital gains thing. We're going to talk about Nvidia. We're going to talk about Apple. We've got a lot to talk about, actually. We're going to talk about this poll as well. Go over to that YouTube channel if you would. Again, it is @76 Research. And if I can do this and talk at the same time, I'm going to put it right here. So @76research.com. There it is. Go and subscribe to that channel if you would as well. So subscribe here, subscribe at 76 Research. Go look at the website, 76research.com, because there's a ton of information for you there. And if you're investing or interested in investing, you really should be signed up. You can use code word dollar, DOLLAR. It's a back to school special. You'll get the newsletter for just $1 for the first couple of months, and then it's $9.95 thereafter. Anyway, really pretty incredible to see what they're trying to do to this country right now. And incredible, disheartening, but I go back to how we led the program, and that's on the new poll that came out, which shows you, they're trying, but they're not having much success in terms of the psyop that they're pushing on America. News today that Donald Trump is coming out swinging against Facebook. He apparently has a new book. And he said in the book that if Mark Zuckerberg has any thought of suppressing his speech and conservative speech, then, he better think again, because that could be very problematic, etc. Now, look, it's a private company, so they can kind of do what they want. But where we are starting to see perhaps real problems, if you would, for the government, not actually for Meta, not for Facebook, because, they're a private company, but where we see real problems is the Harris-Biden administration's attempt to suppress speech. That is what is most interesting to me in this entire story. And as I read again Mark Zuckerberg's letter, I want to remind you this is like massive. The New York Times still hasn't reported on it, for goodness sakes. I mean, come on, guys. But I mean, they should care, right? Like they're supposed to be journalists. This is huge. They're writing that in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision, he said, I don't know, whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of the pressure. I believe the government pressure, though, he writes, was wrong. This is huge. The government, the FBI, was pressuring Facebook, not just on the COVID stuff, but also, here we go. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation around the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 elections. You see that? I mean, this is huge. This is huge. You've got the FBI, which, by the way, knew that laptop was entirely real, entirely authentic. And yet the FBI, in an attempt to, frankly, I mean, how else do we say this, guys, manipulate the election, was out there with all their cronies, with 51X spooks, there you go, intelligence officials, writing in this very special letter organized by none other than Anthony Blinken, our now Secretary of State, who's not doing us much good. By the way, China doesn't even want to deal with him. They got to go to Jake Sullivan now because Anthony's not, I mean, John McCain called it years ago. He is not a talented man. He is wrong on everything. He may be smart. He may have gone to Harvard and now all the special degrees, but this guy should not be Secretary of State. So he runs a campaign effectively to censor this information. And then the Biden White House comes in. I was a victim of this myself because we posted some kind of story on the Hunter Biden laptop. They shut me down. I was not able to access you guys for a year. People were like, where's Trish? Like, have I seen her? No, because that was bad. Okay, so now he's admitting all of this. And why is he admitting it? Ask yourself that. Why? Maybe Mark Zuckerberg is realizing, especially as we go into this brave new world with AI and all that represents, the metaverse is real. I mean, he kind of grabbed that name, good for him, but the metaverse is going to be incredible. Maybe he's realizing that this actually could get very dangerous very, very fast. I mean, think about what Biden fed us in 2020, remember?
50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage.
This is classic Trump. We have 4 days left, and all of a sudden there's a laptop. There's overwhelming evidence that from the intelligence community that the Russians are engaged.
I still think that the stories from the fall about your son Hunter were Russian disinformation at a smear campaign, like you said.
Yes. I know you'd ask it. I have no response. It's another smear campaign. It's a last-ditch effort in this desperate campaign to smear me and my family. The vast majority of the intelligence people have come out and said there's no basis at all.
Wow. Okay, so that was the RNC.
If you
that
really
put that
look
out.
at what's
Hang on one
happening
second. We are going to get to RFK and his comments on this momentarily, but just you saw that, right? And now the timing's different because that was when Biden was running for office and he was saying all those things. He's like, oh, we have all these intelligence heads, the former heads of the CIA, 4 of them, both sides, both parties. I mean, for goodness sakes, how bad was this? How deep is the deep state that they were actually willing to do that in the first place? Think about that, guys. And it turns out it was all bogus and it was all wrong. And now we're finding out that the government then, once they got in there, started putting the screws to Facebook. This is terrifying stuff. You know it. I know it. And yes, RFK Jr. knows it. Watch him. No, they're not the good guys. The good guys have been saying, hey, stop censoring. Hey, this is what happened. The bad guys have said, shut your mouth up now, or we're just going to take away your accounts. We're going to take away your reach. And now Facebook is realizing that they were on the team with the bad guys, perhaps inadvertently, perhaps because they refused to really have their eyes wide open, perhaps because all the people they hire have been educated by all these Ivy woke league institutions that have their own set of problems. And consequently, these people got duped, totally duped. The FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family. And so what did they do? They demoted content. They pulled down content. They suppressed freedom of speech at the request of the Biden-Harris administration. And I wonder if Mark's regretting it right about now. I mean, he was blown away after they tried to take Trump out. They, the kid in Butler County, Pennsylvania. So much so that when he sat down with my former colleague at Bloomberg, Emily Chang, he said this.
I've done some stuff personally in the past. I'm not planning on doing that this time. And that includes, not endorsing either of the candidates. Now, look, there's obviously a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. The historic events over over the weekend. And on a personal note, it's, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. But look, it's, and I think, look, it's, at some level as an American, it's like hard to not get kind of emotional about that spirit and that fight. And I think that's why a lot of people like the guy. Yeah, it is why a lot of people like the guy. By the way, got a lot of weird policies right about now, including all this stuff on the deep state. So I encourage you to go check these guys out. 25truth.com. This is the Heritage Foundation's sort of vision of the future. Those on the left are, oh my God, they're so scared of this. They think it's all bad. It's none of it's bad. None of it's bad unless you believe in, again, suppressing speech, for goodness sakes. They've got some great stuff there about our freedom of speech, about our access to the best quality education, about making sure that from an energy standpoint, we are completely 1,000% energy independent and that we continue to produce energy, all kinds of it right here in the good old US of A. Go check them out. 25truth, 25truth.com. Again, this is something that's put together, Project 2025, by the Heritage Foundation. A ton of good ideas in there, really and truly. But listen, guys, Facebook's a big deal. There's a lot of reach on Facebook. So when people were limited from actually engaging on Facebook, on the one hand, you can say, all right, if it's the company's decision, that's their decision. But if it's because it's pressure from the government, that's a whole other thing. They don't like politics very much on Facebook these days. They know that. So, hey, when you see the cooking video from me on Facebook, you'll know why. Look, they've made a decision. They don't want, they say on either side, to have a ton of politics. Okay, that's, so it's just sort of a fan page there on Trish Regan. And sometimes if you go looking for it, you might find this show and some political content. Fine. Okay. That is what it is. They're making a decision as a business. It's entirely different than what we saw in this letter. Entirely different than the FBI pressuring them. Entirely different than Fauci's team pressuring them. That's where you start getting into some really dicey territory. And Kamala Harris, that's on you, girl. That's totally, thoroughly, entirely on you as Vice President of the United States, even though I know you spent all that time in California going to hang out with your LA Hollywood friends while Joe was at the beach. I'll tell you, if this woman wins, it could be the end of our country as you know it. Because if she's successful in suppressing speech while simultaneously ruining our economy with all of her handouts, causing us to have so much more debt than we even already have,
we're going to have a lot of problems. Another reason why you should go subscribe to 76 Research. Go use code word dollar, DOLLAR. It's important for you. We were reporting, of course, both yesterday and today on Nvidia, because Nvidia is a big freaking deal. Nvidia out with its earnings. That came out yesterday afternoon. And wow, I'll tell you, I was actually working on my finances, personal finances, and looking at my portfolio at the time as this news crossed. And all I did was say, whoo, and not because I'm individually invested in Nvidia, but only because Nvidia has become such an important stock, right, for the overall market. So if you have an S&P 500 index fund, you're going to be invested, whether you like it or not, right, in Nvidia. And so Nvidia is a very good barometer of what to expect. Well, they killed it on earnings, right? They killed it because they doubled their earnings. And it's incredible when you see this. Rob and I wrote about it in this morning's edition of the 76 report. And we were talking about how it's interesting, right? You saw immediately in the after hours market just yesterday afternoon, Nvidia shares slipping. And then what did you see today? You saw the same thing all over again. Listen, this is an important company. I was laughing because there's like earnings viewing parties now. People are like gathering at bars just to watch the earnings as they get released for Nvidia. So that certainly tells you something. When you look at the overall market right now, it's pretty dependent on this company. It's pretty dependent. And this is a company that, by the way, the market fared okay even in spite of this. But the big takeaway is here, look at this. Nvidia now generating 7 times more revenue from its AI products than it did just 2 years ago. So what does that tell you as an investor? It tells you there's still opportunity within this space. So yes, I breathed a sigh of relief because I want Nvidia to do well, because I want the rest of the market to do well. And right now, you could argue that some of these indices are a little overly dependent on Nvidia, which is one of the reasons, a big reason why when Rob and I put together our model portfolios, we actually don't have Nvidia in there. Our thinking being, if you want Nvidia, you're going to be able to get it easily enough. You're going to be able to get it even just in your S&P index 500, S&P 500. Go. If you get the spiders, you have exposure to that. And so Mag 7 in general, right, is a reason to think through diversification. I do believe the AI story is quite real, and there's going to be enormous opportunity. And I have, without tooting my horn too much, I do have a pretty good grasp. I've done this long enough that I have a grasp on sort of the overall direction of things. And I knew back in the year 2000, gosh, how many stories did I do? I was at Bloomberg back then. I would say, this is crazy. These tech stocks are totally crazy. Why are people leaving their jobs at really good law firms to go work for sneakers.com? Right? What is sneakers.com? There were things like that happening. And it felt very fake and very artificial. But I'm telling you, when I look at AI right now, this is real. This is actually going to be a game changer. The technology is growing so quickly, so fastly, and there's a lot of sort of variance on that in terms of how you invest around it. In other words, you don't need to buy Nvidia in order to benefit from this massive growth that's going to happen, that is happening as we speak. Is it all priced in? I don't think so, because I don't think people even completely grasp or understand the real ramifications of all of this. I went to Apple the other day and tried on, the goggles, and wow. It made me feel really good about my tech investing, actually. I'm like, you know what, Trish, you usually are onto something. Bitcoin, I was obsessed with Bitcoin back when it was $10. I tend to be quite right on these things. I also predicted 08 as far back as 06. Nobody wanted to put it on the air. I remember trying to tell them over at CBS, I'm like, listen, this is important. They're like, Trish, the market's at an all-time high. How can we do a story on this house of cards thing? And I'm like, trust me, it's all coming down. It's all coming down. So anyway, I was 2 years ahead of the curve on that one. But I'm telling you, this is interesting stuff. So I'm going to be over at 76 Research momentarily. I encourage you to go over there, guys. Join us at 76research.com. Give me about 10 minutes. I'll see you there. Maybe we'll call it 5:15. So make it a date. I'll see you at 76. Let's continue talking about what happens to this economy under Trump versus Kamala. Let's talk about her crazy, insane idea to tax you on stuff that you haven't even realized any kind of gain on yet, and you could totally lose. We got to talk about these things. It's communism versus capitalism time, baby, and I'm on it. I'll see you there at 76 Research.